Welcome to listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike, and today we have a listening to Paint Dry first. We've had painters, content creators, gamers, people who dabbled in sculpting, but we've never had a full-time sculptor on the show. And I am really glad that a mutual friend, Dave, introduced me to her. It is my pleasure to welcome a very talented and hardworking sculptor, Africa Mir. Africa, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I was. It was kind of a funny confluence of events where I was just kind of like, I need to pass out on this couch and not move around. And then and then Dave sat down and he was like, "You have to have a sculptor." And I'm like, "I know." And he's like, points at you and he goes, "She's a sculptor." And I'm like,
"She's right next to you."
Right.
Dave is such a cool guy. I love him.
Absolutely. He's been a huge friend of the podcast and just a friend in general. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to start this one because you've got so much going on right now.
Yes.
So I guess we'll jump to the timely right now. You are very, very busy with a Kickstarter for Chimera models, and let me just say, Luna is a knockout.
Oh, thank you so much.
That is a beautiful model. And so tell me a little bit about what this process of the Kickstarter is and how you kind of got involved with it.
Well, I started in Chimera, working in Chimera, I think it was the end of 2019, just before the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. At the beginning, they were actually just finishing a Kickstarter. I was not involved at the beginning in Kickstarter's process. I was just sculpting sporadically. Mm-hmm. But then there was a need for a production manager. It was, increasingly clear that it was needed. And I stepped up. I offered. I said, well, I could pick up this. And then, of course, that got me involved in the Kickstarter, more, let's say, in the background, making sure everything was working. And then it came up, hey, why don't you actually participate as a sculptor? Would be nice. And so, yes, here it is. It's happening this time.
Well, I'm glad you did, because the models are beautiful that you sculpted for it. Absolutely. And because I know I'm getting Galen and Luna. I'm not going to do the display thing because I want to do them separately. But I was like, those are. I've seen Galen for a while because I knew not before anything, but like I had seen some of Eric's work in progress stuff on it, yes. And so I was like, that's kind of, I'm all about nights and stuff like that. So.
He did a fantastic job. My God.
Yes. All the painter. I mean, Ricardo's is beautiful of Nick's, yes. And like Mark Mascalin's Asteria is beautiful too. There's so many models on there that are just like, I wish I was independently wealthy and could just give me it all,
I know. We all kind of feel like this. We sometimes see works of this, level, and we think, if only I could just collect them all.
Right.
You have to choose.
Very true. Very true. So why don't you give our listeners a little bit of a background about how you got into the hobby?
Yes. Well, I studied fine arts in university. My career in art started when I was 17, 18 in university. So I picked this career for myself, and I wanted to be, I'm going to be super honest, I never thought I was going to go into minis. I wanted to be a restaurator, working with works of fine art, restoring them, maybe working in a museum. That was my intended path. But as soon as I got into university, I realized sculpting was my thing, almost immediately. I dabbled in everything a little bit, stone, wood, of course, clay, everything that came my way, I tried. And finally, I saw, back then, I'm not that old, but it's true. Back then, there was not a digital sculpting class per se. There was, ZBrush was just coming up. And people didn't really, there was no teachers that were able to teach you this. You had to go kind of fly solo if you wanted to do this. So I discovered it, by chance in the hallways. There was a paper of a teacher from software engineering, actually another faculty, that he was just coming to fine arts and see if anyone wanted to learn 3D. But like this, really. And so I said, okay, I do. Let's see what this is. And I took one course, one course. And I decided, okay, yes, I could do this. And when I finished my fine arts degree, I went into a master's degree that I had to find online because there was nothing going on in Spain. And I combined the knowledge. And so, yes, I went into video games for a little bit because miniature making was not in my horizon. I didn't realize I could do that. Even if I was a 40K fan, but I didn't realize I could be the one doing those minis, right? So I went into video games. I did that for a very, very small period. And then I had my kids, I raised them, stopped for a while for that, even if I never stopped really sculpting for myself or learning, right, by myself. And so I went into board game creation because I created a little game editorial. We started making board games. And after a while, we started making small miniatures, like 15 millimeters, 28 millimeters, for board games. And I started making them just because I could, And, you see it very slowly. And this process took 15 years that I'm telling you about. I mean, this is a long time with kids in the middle and everything. And so we were in a trade show one day. This is the interesting part now. We were in a trade show one day and I met Big Child. They were there in the trade show as well. And they saw my products. They saw what I was doing. I talked to Palomares and he said, hey, if you do 3D sculpting, why don't we make a test? Maybe you can work with us. And I did this test and it happened. I just started working for Camon and Big Child. Stayed there for 5 years, 5 and a bit more, doing miniatures for all the board games, for Camon games. I learned a ton about miniatures when I was working there. And then I decided to maybe try and go for 75 millimeters, a different kind of thing. Like in my mind, I wanted to do a bit more or different than only board game things. Mm-hmm. And so Chimera appeared. I went into contest. I got my first gold, and then they were there and we started talking and they said, why don't you sculpt for us? And the rest is history. I'm here. This has been 3 years. So sorry if it was a bit long, but that's okay. This is how it went.
It's fascinating. It's just very interesting that the path, because there's no, like, you had no where you are now you had no clue of where you were when you started out. And so that's just it's amazing how things kind of play out and happen,
It really is. I cannot say I was a fan of minis. Mm-hmm. I even to this day, I don't collect them. I have many at home, but because of my job, but I played Warhammer, but I played and barely painted. I just played. I don't know. It's fun. It's really fun. And then you find yourself in a field that you love and you didn't even think you could be in it. That's what happened to me.
That's the thing. I don't know. That's a thing of beauty to me. That if you find that new passion that was out there. Now, do you paint at all, or do you still just mostly sculpt?
I am starting. Well, I've been starting, quote unquote, for many years. There are so many minis that are there, just waiting to be finished.
Right.
I love it. It's very relaxing. Only thing is, I try to find hobbies now that this has become my job. Yes. I try to find hobbies that are outside of it.
I can understand. I don't get how people do it for a living. I to be honest, like when just the small amount of commissions I do take me forever, and I hate them by the end of the time. And, so
Yes.
I don't know how people do it for a living.
It is intense. It is intense because it involves creativity. Anything that involves creativity, it becomes difficult to have it on a regular basis, to be doing it on a regular basis, whether you are in the mood or not. You need to learn to get very systematic about creativity, which is almost a contradiction. So it is intense, and sometimes we are burned out, not because of anything else. It's just that we are kind of trying to fit creativity in a mold that is not meant for it, which is,
Right,
routine.
right. Routine,
Yes.
productivity and creativity don't necessarily go hand to hand for
No, not
sure.
necessarily. No, but of course, when your income depends on it, or even the company depends on you to be regular and strong in it, there is no room for saying, "Oh, today the muse didn't want to visit me." No, there is no muse.
Right.
Just do it.
The muse might be a cup of coffee and some music to get going, right?
Yes. Yes. Or cuddling your favorite teddy bear in a corner if you need to.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done that at some point in my life.
Of course.
So let's start in the world of the fine arts side of it. And you decided that you wanted to be a sculptor. Who were some of the artists or sculptors that kind of inspired you?
Yeah, well, I always go back to. I have a background in dance. Was not related until now, but actually, I was going to be a professional dancer. I did the conservatory and all the works, and I always go back to MacDonald because he's a sculptor that portrays the dancers and acrobats, and especially from Cirque du Soleil, which I admire a lot. And he has such a sense of movement, of balance. It's a thing of beauty. I recommend it to anyone that is interested.
I'm gonna have to look him up because I actually don't
Yes,
know that.
maybe we can give a link. I don't know if you ever do that, but well, I was
Absolutely.
inspired. I was really inspired by this, and I thought, oof, if I could ever in my life join these two worlds that I know so well together, like he does, I would be so happy. Of course, it takes a life.
So Richard McDonald, right?
Yes.
Oh
He
my
has a
goodness!
permanent exhibition in Las Vegas, if I remember correctly.
Oh my goodness! These are just
He is.
incredible.
It really is. And so
I
to
will put a
me,
link in the show notes for it for sure.
yeah, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so I apologize. You sent me down a rabbit hole.
Yes, I love when this happens. I wish I was you right now and just discovering just now because that feeling is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he inspired me a lot. I was really, I don't know, it's one of those light bulb moments.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Before you found digital, did you have a preferred form of sculpting? I know there was that gap in time because I remember when ZBrush first came out, a lot of architects were using it. And that was a big area that and I can't think of the name of the other program, CAD and
AutoCAD, yes.
ZBrush were at least for the group that I worked for. I worked for a furniture rental company, and so they did
Oh, I see.
floor plan layouts, and they used ZBrush, another program called Z Access, and CAD were their main kind of things for it. So, but prior
Yes.
to the digital world creeping in, did you prefer like clay or wood or metal? Where was your original sculpting passion?
Oh, let me think. I remember enjoying a lot working with clay. I remember that. I remember being a bit annoyed at the clay under my fingernails,
Yeah.
but I loved the smell and the feel of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy. I remember having very happy moments with clay. Um, wood as well, although it was a bit difficult because you had to cheap at it, and it was more physically intense for me. But
Right.
I did enjoy it a lot. Also, the smell of the wood, the quality of the wood, the things that you can do with it if you
Yeah.
give it a bit of time and patience. It's so beautiful and so
I agree.
alive. Yes.
That's a good way. Yeah, you know, that's very true. When you sculpt with something organic like wood, it kind of gives you that life feeling for sure. But
Absolutely.
you got, you know, clay under the fingernails, splinters, you know.
Yes. Yes, well, I have to say I am a bit a bit delicate, and with the years, of course I lost my touch with all this handwork, and
Mhm.
so now I know it would be harder for me to go back. I miss it, and
Mhm.
I miss the feeling, and I've been considering doing it when my kids grow up a little and I have more time, to just set up a little corner in my studio maybe and go back
Mhm.
to clay. Yes.
I would not use the word delicate to describe you. You're a mother.
It's true.
Delicate does not. Yeah.
Not poop. I have handled puke. I can handle clay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. I needed that.
Oh no, I know we talked when we were talking on the couch. One of the things we were talking about is how children, raising children in the United States and in Italy, not really much different in an overall sense. You know, you still deal with
Right.
the same teenagers are teenagers
Oh,
across the
yes.
world.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so
Oh,
it
yes.
felt good. It felt good having that conversation with you going, you know what? Not only am I not alone here, I'm not alone globally, you know?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Well, it's since we are in this hobby, we tend to concentrate on that, and we don't speak much about our normal, let's call them normal or daily lives. No,
Right.
many of us are parents. Many of us are even have other jobs. We go through I don't know, all of
Yeah.
it, and it sometimes is good to connect on these other levels. No, I
Right.
think
I
it's very
agree.
nice.
Well, you know, part of it too is you get to learning the person, you kind of see the person come out in the art. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, I feel like there's a huge connection to it. And it's interesting too, because one of the reasons I love doing the podcast and getting to talk to everybody, people all across the world, is that you do get to see different styles and different motivations. And it's funny though, a lot of us have the same inspiration though. Like, you know, if you ask a mini painter, 99% of them, who inspires them, the first word is Franchetta. You know, you know, that's the first
Yeah.
thing out of their mouth.
And mostly, I would say, if we are around our age and a male or maybe hetero male, you were very inspired by all these things. Maybe even Milo Manara, Rollo. For me, I am a bit on the unique side of things as a sculptor, as a female, being my age, being a mother. There is so many things that make me a bit different.
Sure.
But of course, we are all inspired by the same pool of culture in our Western society, no?
Absolutely. So, what was the very first 75 millimeter figure that you sculpted?
Oh, that was Liath.
Okay.
Liath the Druides, that was later bought by Chimera to
Okay.
produce on their own line, but it was done mainly, it was conceived to just go to contest. That
Okay.
was my okay, how I approached this. I was doing 38s and chibis for Camon, and I thought, I want to do 75s. I want to be able to do this for any company that would want me. How do I approach this? I will make one, and I will take it and show it to the world. And if it's liked, I will see what the response is and go from there. And that's what I did. I concepted it. I
That's
worked on
perfect.
it, pulled a favor from my very good friend Petre in scale 75. He helped me out with the printing. And
Nice.
I just took the little print like this, holding it in my hand, not knowing where I was going to SMC in Holland. And that's how I took it there. And it was well liked. So that was it.
Oh,
Just
great. No, that's awesome.
well, it's a good tale, I think, because I would like to give out the message if you are thinking of trying, just, put yourself out there. Just try. Just go on, do your best, go. Show
Right.
it.
And you'll never
Yes.
know the answer until you
Of
try,
course.
right?
Yes. There's nothing
You know,
wrong. You try. It could go well. It could go well the next time. Just learn. Don't stay closed, in fears. That's what I would say.
right.
Easier
And
said than done, but it's my point of view. I try to do this for myself.
no, I think it's a great point of view. I think that one of the things that also makes this podcast easier is that artists in this hobby like to talk about this hobby. And so approaching a sculptor and asking about sculpting, you're probably going to get a good response. They're going to want to talk about sculpting.
Of course. And sculpting deserves to be on a bit more of a front
Agreed. Yeah.
page or a bit on the spotlight, because we are all the sculptors I know in this hobby. I know many. We are all such fun people, but just a bit introverted. So we need a little push. But once you get to know us, we are such a fun bunch, really, and we have a lot to say and a lot to show. Really. So it's
Absolutely.
good. This mix between sculpting and painting needs to happen. We need to mix. We need to be talking to each other. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I can't yes, that was part of our conversation at Adepticon, is that how much of a partnership painters and sculptors are. And even when in a world where we don't necessarily interact with the person who sculpted it, but we're reading their personality, their designs as we're painting it. And so it's and y'all probably look out at the market and look at what people are painting and try to decide what to sculpt next. And it kind of is a symbiotic relationship that, I feel like we have to spend more time together. I feel like painters become better painters when they listen to the sculptors talk about their work, and it might inspire them and say, "Oh, I didn't see it that way. Let me try it," And so,
Yes. I totally see this. I would enjoy seeing this and be part of it. I really love the painting side of this hobby. Well, I am surrounded by painters. I am in love with one. I really love you painters. You are fantastic, and I love to see what you come up with. With the base that I provide.
right.
There's nothing I enjoy more than seeing painted versions of the same mini. It's just so fantastic, because you can see the personality of the painter as well in it, and the combination is a new thing. And there is so little, if you think about it, forms of art where you get two people putting so much of their hearts into one result. And dance and music, they do this as well. I was in this profession before the one I am in now, where you would dance to a classical musician playing for you, and this symbiosis was so beautiful, so fantastic.
You're also fortunate that you hang out with some of the best painters in the world, and Francesco and Riccardo, and I got to take classes from both of them at Adepticon, and it was brilliant. I learned a ton, and how much Francesco loves caramel macchiatos, right?
Oh, it was me. It was because of me. He can tell you. He said, "Africa, from now on, I trust you with my coffee choices. What should I take today?" And I said, "Oh, my friend, you are trying the caramel macchiato, and you're not coming back."
Yep, that was a good portion of that 7-hour class, was conversations about caramel macchiatos.
I can totally see it. Well, when we are in the car, Francesco and Rick and I and Pietro Valoni also sometimes, when the team is together, the conversations are so good.
Nice.
Art,
I can imagine.
But also fun, but then art again. It's so good, really.
It's really interesting to see from the different points of view. So you start a kind of a classic art education, and then like you throw in like here, look, I'll be honest, America's art education sucks, right?
Really?
Especially in the younger levels in schools. Art teachers are doing the best they can. It's not the teacher's fault. It's just what they are limited to in their resources and
I
stuff.
understand.
But most basic high school students most of them couldn't explain to you basic complementary color, what works out with the color wheel and things along those lines.
I see. Oh, well.
And so it's interesting that when you have that classic education, but now I'm turning 50 this year, and I've been back in the hobby for maybe 2016. Now I'm all in. I'm consuming art history books. I'm consuming like color theory books and mixing book. You know, I bought a oil paint mixing book.
Oh,
just to look at it.
Rabbit hole.
I don't paint oils, and I probably won't because I have a wife and a daughter who are smell sensitive migraines.
Okay.
And so, but look, I sit there looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. You mix these, you know, like, I'm like, wait, who am I? I'm not, like, what's going on?
New person coming up.
Right. I never knew I was interested in, I love art. I've always loved art history.
Yeah.
And I've always was like, I grew up as a sketcher wanting to be like, when I was very young, I wanted to draw comic books. And I was really into it. I was really into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was my jam. I would love, and
So
I
fun.
was growing up when it was the black and white, none of this cowabunga pizza ninjas. It was the original comic books.
Okay.
But my parents were just like, you will never make money. You'll never make money. You know,
that discourse. Let's talk about that. Yes.
Yeah. I put my sketchbooks down. Started in a different direction in life and such. And I was okay. I mean, I'd like, you know, I didn't have any formal training. I was just looking at comic books, trying to imitate what they were doing and such.
Yes.
But I was having a damn good time of it. I'll tell you that.
Oh, you had it in you. It just needed to come out.
Right. But it took 30 plus years.
Yeah. That's so, but hey, this is not just the US, huh?
Is it the same kind of pressures? Is it in Europe too? Okay.
Yes. The only difference, well, maybe it is a big difference, is that we are maybe more exposed to classical art everywhere, like in the street. And we give it a lot of importance in high school. We study history of art.
Right.
And you're not studying something that is remote, that is alien to your culture. It's you literally are studying probably inside a building that was built in the 1500s. Probably there's more than one high school set inside a building like this. So it's all around you. Maybe this is an advantage. But as far as the cultural society perception of art, we have a similar problem. These phrases that you just told me that your parents told you, yes, we get this a little bit also. But how do you make money? But okay, you do this, but what else do you do? What do you think? You think, or to a little kid, okay, art is cool, but it's not an important subject. You should study more on math or language. This kind of, yes, it's going on also in Europe. But, for example, in Spain, I noticed differences between Italy and Spain because now I am, of course, I was born, raised, and until very recently in Spain. And then I have moved to Italy, not full time, but half of my time is spent in Italy. And I am noticing how similar we are and then the differences. They are super clear to me. And this is one of them. In Spain, we have more acceptance towards art, towards art as a career.
Okay.
There is more acceptance. Maybe this is the reason why there is so many good Spanish artists in miniature. It's super strong in this. Right. Maybe this is the reason. There is a little bit of shame, but less, that it's more encouraged. For example, my family, my grandfather was a doctor. but he was also a painter in his free time. He picked up the oils and painted. My grandma, she for a while was a pottery maker, and she even had her own studio. She tried to sell her pottery, and she did quite well in the 50s, 60s. My mother, she never wanted to be an artist, but she tried with drawing, and nobody was shaming her for that. So, it's less of a problem in Spain. Maybe this is the reason why there's so many good ones. I don't know.
Well, it's, what's interesting though is that they have these careers, but yet they still have, I hate to call it a hobby. It could be a passion, but they still have that outlet. Maybe outlet. That's a better artistic outlet. They go. You have that 9 to 5 workout, then you go, and then you have the ability to blow off steam. I know for me, sitting, painting, listening to a podcast or heavy guitar music and painting away, I lose track of time. I feel better when I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, so I can. Exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, that's differences, but similarities, like it's fascinating to hear for sure.
And it's fascinating to me when you say, because some of the best art schools in the world are in the US, but at higher levels. It's kind of curious, no, that we don't encourage this for younger people.
well, I've heard a few people talk about it too, and part of maybe one segment of the problem is an area like healthcare, right? And so in Europe, you might have the opportunity, like, because of the nature of the healthcare systems, if you break a leg, you can go to the hospital. Here, you have to have insurance, and mostly, if you don't have a job, insurance is super expensive. And so there's that kind of aspect of it. I know a few painters whose spouses have the insurance and have the job, and that they're content creators, and that's a wonderful situation. But that's few and far between, right? There's not
a small part of all of us can do this.
Right. And there's so many different business models too. You have like the Miniacs and such, who their main content creation is that's what drives their business, right? And then you have like the painter model, like an Eric. Eric does some content creation with his stream, but his main business model is pumping out painted models for companies. And so it's very kind of diverse in that sense, because you kind of have to figure out where you're going to function, you know what I mean? And that looming health insurance, especially if you have a family and a spouse.
Oh, wow, yes.
That's a huge weight on you. You know what I mean?
You're totally right in this. I think that apparently is so far away from the hobby, which is, do you have health insurance? No, it affects so much the rest of your life.
Yep.
Because it affects your decisions, your choices. Can I really just take the luxury of being a freelancer and see if I can make my living as a painter? No, not so easily. If I don't have the support of a health system that will take care of me, not for free, but through taxes and small co-pays like we have in Spain.
Sure.
So, of course, I totally sympathize with this. I have 2 kids. I would have never been the artist I am now if I didn't have a system in place in my country that supported me indirectly the way I was supported. It's true. I cannot deny this.
It's amazing.
It is. It's really important. And for the well-being and the mental health of the inhabitants of a country,
right?
To have them supported in this way, I think so. I lived in the US for some years also. I actually was yes.
Were you East Coast, West Coast? Where were you?
West Coast. I lived. I went to college in California.
Oh, did you? Okay. Nice.
Yes, I was a dance major and then a sociology minor.
Okay.
Yeah, and then after some years, I came back. I studied, no, not to study anymore. I had my kid already, and to work in Seattle, in Washington.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of years. And on that period, I was actually, I worked as a teacher in the Seattle public schools system. And I had a chance to see how the work life is also, not just as a student, but as a worker.
Right.
And yes, I can totally see what you mean. I sympathize with this. I always wondered if this could be changed, but I don't know.
It's getting there. There are positive signs. Like we have more full-time content creators and painters than we've ever had in the U.S. And so that's definitely, I mean, things are on the up and up, I believe, and you're starting to get more exposure of, you're seeing the Erics, the Wilhans, the Anthony Wangs, and Matt DiPietro. All those American artists are starting getting more, and there's so many more. Aaron Lovejoy. I could probably. It's amazing how many of them are.
My dear Jen Haley.
Jen Haley, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so, and you have Elizabeth Beckley, and like there's so many, so many out there. And then you also now have like the Shoshi Bowers and the Lila Mevs who have their own miniature lines as well, which is also awesome. And so, yeah, there is development and progress here. We're still catching up, but
that's okay. I mean, that's okay. We all catch up at some point to something.
Oh, sure.
We're all catching
Absolutely.
up.
Absolutely.
It's reality.
But it's I don't know. I think it's a kind of, we're at an amazing point in the hobby that post-COVID, which I think COVID was probably more positive overall for the hobby than it was negative, in that more people got back into the hobby of painting. They had more time. And I was worried that people, once we came out of it, people would stop. But it appears people have not stopped. They kept it up,
It's amazing what can happen if you give people a bit of space and time.
Little space and time, absolutely. Okay, so let's get back to sculpting. We've been talking.
It's very fine. I'm sure the listeners are very fine with all these. We are touching such a wide range of topics.
Oh, no, I don't want to squander having our first sculptor on. There's so many. What kind of advice would you have for somebody like I have no desire to sculpt a full miniature. But I do want to look into being able to add fur, do that kind of sculpting down the road. Do you have any kind of advice of where to kind of start with that? I'm terrible at it.
Oh no, come on.
Oh no, I haven't done it very much.
Okay, yeah.
Most of my sculpting has been gap filling, and maybe I've made a couple of pumpkins for a diorama,
Yes. So what program do you use? Blender? What do you use?
Right now, I have not used a program. That has all been by hand.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. The thing is, probably like every software out there, learning is a bit of a steep curve. It's overwhelming. You open the program and you say, "Whoa, what? How many hours do I need to just understand how to make a ball, please?" So that's why it gets daunting. No? The prospect of starting. I understand that very well. So I would recommend, not as a professional, guys, listen to me, but as a hobbyist, as someone that just wants to do a little bit of this and that, download Blender, which is for free. Try to get tutorials. There is plenty for free in YouTube. Do not. You won't take long to find them. I can recommend a place where you can learn buying tutorials of quality also. But there is stuff for free. Try to learn the interface a little bit. You don't have to dominate it. And then assets. this is the part that I don't recommend for professionals, assets. But for just the hobby level stuff for yourself to print at home, all that, yes, absolutely. Go find assets, download them, import them into your little model and play with it. Just download all the resources that you can and have fun. Don't limit yourself and think that you have to make everything from scratch. No. Yes. So go on and find, you said fur, right? Fur brushes. Go find them. There's plenty. If not, I will send you a couple and I'll show you how to use them. No, not a problem. Of course, have fun with it.
So then let me ask you this question then, kind of along the same lines. So I know when I was originally like sketching and drawing and such, I struggled with sketching both men and women's chests, like getting a realistic look and pectorials, etc. Yeah. Were there any parts when you started sculpting that you kind of had to work harder on or struggled a little bit with?
Yeah, there were a couple parts, basically from hairs to toes. Mm-hmm. Everything. No, what I mean to say is anatomy is super difficult.
Right.
It's the most difficult thing you can ever study, I think. Well, engineers out there are going to kill me, but I think anatomy is up there with the most difficult things. So much so that I don't think you can ever master it. So yes, understandably, there will be spots where you get stuck and you will just not see the volume. You will not see it, and in those points you need help. You need a mentor or preferably a person, not just a YouTube video, but a person that will help you, guide you through the problem. For me, it was always the head area, hair, portrait, noses, jaws, mouths. It was always a struggle. Yes, more than anything else, I would say. Not that everything else was easy at all.
Well, I had a friend who did larger clay sculptures, wasn't miniatures or anything, and his was noses. He's like, I feel like all I need to do is like, if I can sculpt 5 good noses, make a cast of it, and don't have to worry about noses, and I can just use that cast for noses in the future, because he hated sculpting noses.
Yeah, I could totally see how I would say something like this. I need a box of noses, please. Just leave me alone. Just stick them in there. Yes. No. Yeah. It's hard. It's very hard. Portraiting is super difficult. I think there's some people that just find it comes to them easier, or maybe they find the trick to it and are super good. Mm-hmm. And the rest of us, we just fight with it. It is like that.
Right. You just kind of plow through and keep going until you're like, good enough, right?
Hey, you know what? This was my mother was telling me as a compliment, totally as a compliment. She was saying, Africa, when you were studying in uni, there was, I don't know, how many in your promotion? 70 people in your promotion. And as far as we know, you are the only one that is doing it professionally 20-some years later. Of all those kids that wanted to be artists.
Right. That's amazing.
There's me. And then she was wrong. There is another one that I know of, at least, is Lolita Aldea. She's a famous comic artist. But okay, let's say there is 5 of us doing it. No, the percentage is super low. And she was saying, what I think happened here is that you were so persevering in your interest, you never stopped. I never saw you stop, not even having a baby, 3-month-old baby, in your arms. I saw you sculpting with a baby in your arms, Africa. Do you realize this? You never stopped. And I was thinking, yes, this is it. It's persevering.
Yeah. Now, see, that's an interesting point too that you make. Was it because you had moved to the digital medium with kids? Did that make it easier? It's like there was no cleanup or anything like that, right? Like I would think that probably you were smart in what you were doing, because it almost seemed like you did it on purpose, you know?
You would almost say this. This little girl, she's not that silly. Look at her go. Well, I had no money when I got my first computer. I have it still just as a nostalgic. And I realized very fast that the digital was my solution. Didn't have that much space.
Right.
Raising two babies in Seattle in an apartment didn't have that much space. Certainly not for clay, playing with clay. No.
Well, then you got to worry about little hands too, and it's. I've lost more than one figure to little hands.
Totally.
Not actually not my kids though, because my kids were older when I got back in the hobby, and so they kind of understood don't mess with dad's stuff. But like nieces and nephews and guests, yeah, oh yeah,
it's inevitable, right?
Right.
So
right.
yes, I have to say, the digital medium helped me a lot in my career. I would say made my career probably. This choice made my career. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to touch on was a part of a conversation we did have at Adepticon was that we talked about how that digital sculptors might sculpt too much on a model. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I know one of the things that frustrates me when I see models, I'm like, why is that filigree on the cape 3-dimensional?
Yes.
And so I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts about it and how you approach that so you don't over detail the model, because there are some models I bought that I look at and I'm like, I'm never going to paint that. It's too much detail on that,
Absolutely. I love to get painters' thoughts on this. Whenever I can, I ask, how do you actually enjoy a surface to be presented in a mini so that you can do your best on it? So what do you want? When I was working in 38 millimeters, it was a very clear set of rules because I was working for a big company that had the standard was super clear. When I started doing 75 millimeters, it really depended on the company. Okay. The thing here is that when you are a professional, you really have to adhere to the standards of the commission that you're given. It's very different to work for yourself, do whatever comes to your mind, and have some art director decide everything and then tell you exactly what you need to do. No? My personal thoughts on this is I would prefer simpler minis, less amount of detail, let the painters have surfaces to express themselves. And we sculptors, we can express ourselves through other languages inside the mini, for example, silhouette, right? We can work with movement. We can show you proportions. We can do so much that is not in small filigranes.
Right.
That in the end is just a pattern that you're placing there.
Right.
Play with anatomy, play with other things that are inside in a deeper or more structural level of the mini, and let the painters do their job on the external part of it. No? If we could arrive to this point, I think it would be much better for the hobby in general. We would see better results. What I think is that it happens, it's very tempting, especially with digital, but look at Costa's Cariotellis. Also, by hand, it's very tempting to put a lot of detail in pieces.
See, I love the way. See, one of the reasons I got Luna is because there are so many canvases on her. Like I kind of like each section is a little the shroud and the skin and all those things to me are like little mini canvases, and I just thought it was beautifully. It's almost as important what you don't put on there as what you put on there, and so I apologize for interrupting you. Sorry.
No, not at all. You're what you're saying is super interesting, and it merges with my point perfectly well. I do this as a conscious choice as much as I am allowed by the art direction. I enjoy giving you painters this possibility. I believe it is my job to provide support, like a good base, a good canvas on which to make cool things. No, that's
Right.
the point.
Right.
So none of us should work like our part of the work is the only part of it, unless hey, you are trying to do a sculpt only for render, or that's a different case, right? But I'm talking about
Right.
what my job is, which is make minis for painting. Hello. So yes, I see. It's very tempting to add too much detail. It is. I understand it. I've fallen prey to this temptation many times, but it's. I think it's a thought worth having and worth considering. Reducing a little bit this frenzy.
Right. So, yeah, it's just so like there's so many potential rabbit holes here, but
Yeah, I know.
um,
I'm an expert on this. I will give you 1,000.
so I've talked with just in general, like other like I know, like for example, how Reaper Miniatures works. They have their artist, and then it goes to a sculptor, and then it goes to printing, and etc. Is does most of your work come with like here's a concept art sculpted?
Yes.
You know, is that kind of where most of your work comes from?
Most of it has been like this for most of my career. Yes. So you get, including common games, up until now, everything. Most of it has been like this. Yes. And there is a concept artist that receives instructions just the same and just puts them on 2D, no, on a concept, and then as a sculptor, your job is to interpret this in a 3D space and get as close as possible to the look and feel of the concept. So yes, you're most of the time doing this, basically interpreting. Now, that there is always an art director that will guide you, so you're not alone in this process, right? Now, the job that I'm doing now allows me, because we are a very close-knit team in Chimera and Pegaso, it allows me to input more of my ideas into my models.
Oh,
This is
that's
something
great.
I enjoy a lot, I have to say. And even if I had an idea for a model and I wanted to sculpt it all by myself and then present it to the company, there is high chances that they would even accept it and put it in the line. And I would get, through these means, complete freedom, right?
Right. Right.
So
Our
it's an
listener,
ideal situation.
our listeners can't see it, but when you said that it said that you had a huge smile on your face.
Yes. I do have a huge smile when I say this. It's true. Well, because hey, you're creative. You have tons of ideas in your head that you would like to see.
Yeah.
Reality.
Do you have a favorite concept artist that you've worked with, or as a sculptor, I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot and be like,
No, it's fine. Actually, I just received a concept by Moroni that you guys will see made probably next year, and I am so in love with it.
nice.
Because it's he's smiling because he sees my face lighting
I
up.
do.
I'm just like sitting straight and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna tell you a cool thing."
She's totally glowing. Like there's like this aura of like excitement coming.
Yeah,
I
yes.
can't wait. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Oh, unfortunately, I cannot say what it is, but
That's
I will
fine.
say that the concept, when I saw it first, I thought, this is a sketch made with intent, with love, with freedom. I can see this person had enjoyed making this sketch. It was free. He was, and of course he's a super good artist. So he can be free and put down on paper something that tells me I get the language. It tells me way more than what is just in the paper. I can see what he means by it.
Well, that's
And then,
beautiful.
yes, and this is a non-verbal communication. Not even, we don't even know each other. We don't even see each other's faces, but we communicate through the art, right?
That's
Does
that's
this make
stunning.
sense? Yes. And so when I got this concept and I saw it, it was not even like the feet were not completely finished, but you could see where they were going. You could see what the posture was. And it was so free, and I thought, oh, if I can grab this, not kill any of the spontaneity, grab what he means by this and make it a reality. Whoa, this is top. This is the top. So there you go.
That's awesome. All right, we're gonna keep our eye out for that for sure. That's
Oh,
awesome.
yes.
Yeah,
I will let you know for sure.
please, yeah, absolutely. And I'll ask the other side of it. And I'm not looking for names, but have you ever gotten concept art and you've been like, "What the hell is this?"
Yes, of course. Of course. And sometimes I was lucky enough to have the artist right next to me. And I would just I would just get up from the chair and say, okay, what are we doing here? Can you please explain this to me? Because I know you are like an amazing artist, but what happened? And sometimes it's because of the description that comes from art direction or whatever. The description is not that great, maybe, or so you don't understand. How is this supposed to look from the side? I don't really get. Like, you cheated here, and I have to make it a reality.
Right. Yeah.
But it all has a solution. Always, there's always a solution.
Yeah, I just learned a huge lesson not too long ago because our logo has a little guy in it inside a paint jar. And one of the things we're trying to do is get him to life, get him to three dimensions. And so I went on Fiverr and I went to like 6 different concept artists and gave them things along those lines. And 4 of them never produced anything because they wanted more and more and more detail. And I'm like, I kind of want to see what you're going to do with it. I mean, it's an ogre. He's got spikes, you can see the shape. He's kind of cartoony. He's got a laser arm. And one of them came out okay. And then another one, the person I gave the most description to was the furthest away from what the description was too.
Amazing.
It was just, I was like, wow, this is a few $100s down the toilet just getting
Oh
a
God,
concept sketch.
no,
But
this hurts.
but it is what it is, right? It's a process of learning and such. And so, because that's what our goal was, to try to get 3 good concept arts, put them in our Discord channel and have our people on our Discord channel vote which one, and then send it to a digital sculptor. Because we had to also do front and back because for digital sculpting purposes. And so, but man, we still have, it's been 6 months and we still haven't even gotten to the 3 sketches yet.
Oh, I feel this in my heart. Hey, heads up. Concepting is a very hard career.
I can imagine, yeah.
It's super difficult. And I have the luxury of working with the best. So my job is made so much easier because of them. When I have done maybe some work for a friend or some favor, and I've gotten simply a series of photos put on top of each other, like an orc head put in paint on top of another photo of a guy with an axe, and then a photo bashing, but in the bad sense. And you see it and you think, wow, I'm so grateful for my colleagues in concept arting right now. You are stars, all of you.
Right. No.
It's very difficult. But if you kind of get the chain of good artist after good artist after good artist, you end up with, of course, the pieces that we see in contest, they are works of art. Because there's a chain of artists working there.
Yes.
There is so much quality, it blows your mind. Yes.
Oh yeah, and it's funny because now we've actually kind of stopped that because we're sponsoring the youth top 3 youth painting awards at ReaperCon coming up in August, or
Nice.
at the end of August, and so now we got to design a trophy, and I'm like, oh my god, that's going to be
Oh.
just as hard as the
Good luck.
right. Right, and just the whole long process of it, getting the concept, getting the sculpt, getting it printed. Then once getting it printed, I'm just gonna do them, gold, silver, bronze, because that's all they really need to be. But
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the reason why I'm not in the miniature business. This is something.
It is, and it's I don't think the average client realize how much of an artisanal process it is,
Mm-hmm.
start to
Yeah.
finish, and how much knowledge goes into it. Yeah,
Right.
it's mind blowing, really. So yes, good luck with the trophies, though.
Yeah.
I really hope it goes well.
Yeah, I have it's a simple concept. And so I've talked to a couple artists over the weekend, and originally they were giving me kind of like hardcore, like wanting detail. And I'm like, look, I'm like, I kind of put it out. I was like, I want to see what you're going to do. I am looking for have you sketched a wizard before? And they're like, well, yes. Okay. So my whole thing was basically the trophy of a kid in kind of an oversized wizard robe holding up a paintbrush. Kind
Okay,
of
cool.
simple, and then ReaperCon 2023, sponsored by Listening to Paint Dry. Super
Perfect.
simple. And like, finally I got through to a couple artists. They're like, oh, okay. And like, you are overcomplicating this, right? This does
Yeah.
not have to be the most detailed. It's going to be spray painted gold, silver, and bronze.
Yeah.
We can take this concept sketch next year and go further, and let's see, we can evolve the award. But as of right now, I just want something super simple. And so I got one back that's really a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, because I was worried about it. But it's, you just got to find that connection. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And some of the artists are so worried that they're going to get dinged for reviews or things along those
Oh,
lines. If they don't provide exactly what they want, they keep asking and asking questions. And I'm like, at this point, I'm drawing it for you. Why am I hiring it?
it's a bit of the artist insecurity, no?
Probably
Could be.
yeah, it could be that as well, but at one point, and my sketching skills are no better. I have not gotten back to where I was in high school, but I'm like, I don't think my sketching is good enough to sculpt from yet.
Okay.
But it's one of those, it's like, I'm like, God, I need to get there in the next year. I need to spend some
Well,
time on that,
if you got a really good sculptor, they could really interpret a good sculpt out of nothing, out of 2 phrases probably. But of course, all those are taken.
And I'm going to be honest, you know what? Those sculptors are probably out of my price range, and so that's
All
okay.
right.
And
Unless you
that's,
are a very good friend.
right. And you know
No.
what? I don't want to do that with this, because I
I understand.
understand, what I understand that it's your living, that it's a job. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a type in my job that I do, because I work a regular job as well. I don't have any of those type of opportunities to be. I work in government real estate. I can't really like, oh, you need some government real estate as a
Let
favor.
me
No, I
help you.
can't really hook anybody up there. And so, but I get. I don't want to. No, that's one of those things where, yeah, I want people to be paid for their work. You know what I mean? And I totally get it.
Well, for me, it is never a problem. It's never about money. I love to help. My only problem is time.
mm-hmm.
So
There's the
I
other
always
one.
tell you, yes, I'll help you. Do you mind if I give it to you in 2026? So it's not much of a help. I mean, I would love to do it before, but
Oh no.
it's more like that.
So, you and Dave are now really only 2 sculptors, the kind of focused sculptors that I know. And I had reached out to Dave. I said, hey, here, like something like this. And he's like, well, He goes, I'm not a very productive sculptor. I'm new.
Okay.
And that's fine. And he's like, but he's like, I've already got like 7 projects between now and, the middle of next year. And I'm like, fair enough. That's all good. No, I mean, there are artists out there, there are sculptors that hopefully life is good that you're too busy, right? That's a good thing, and we certainly celebrate that. So, but, yeah.
It must be hard to find a balance. I would say either find a very good concept artist and then maybe a beginner sculptor, or possibly the opposite.
Right.
But at some point you need let's say a bit of a higher level so that the result is put together in a good way.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's difficult. I understand it. Oh, I was reminded of a phrase that I think it was a teacher of mine that said it to me. I don't remember who right now, but this was before this last part of the conversation. But I wanted to say it for all of us to know, So it was something like this. The mark of a true master is self-containment. Does this make sense in English? Meaning self-restraint. Okay, self-restraint maybe is the better word. Meaning that if you are able to simplify, that's when you have all the knowledge and you are able to simplify, create a language and make it and bring everything down and not put all the detail and all the knowledge you have in every single sculpt you make or art you make. Then you are in the master region. That's what he was trying to tell us, I think. So self-restraint.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it does. But I mean, honestly, like when you started saying that too, my brain went a couple other places too, like knowing when a project's done, knowing, and those type of like how to finish a project, where like goals. I mean, that's very, very smart advice for sure. Absolutely.
I have tried to, I don't know, aim for that, like understand everything about your job or your passion. Understand, by all means, understand everything, try everything, but in every piece you do, apply self-restraint to the point that you're able to. And that's right. Let's say the path, the progression towards mastering whatever you're doing.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think about. It's like you've got my brain like really kind of churning, because it's also knowing when, I guess, there's knowing when to stop. That I don't know. That's a huge thing in in my world right now, because of a couple of competition pieces I know would have been better if I would have stopped. Mm-hmm. Like a couple of weeks beforehand, and would have went, you know what, it's done. But instead of trying to, or, oh, wait, there's no texture on this. Well, what does it need texture? Like why do I have to show that I can paint texture on that? That's
does
brilliant.
Need it? Does the piece need it? But then of course we have the artist ego. We have it. It's okay. But then you have to self-check. You say, okay, does this piece require that I show off on this area? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. I know how to do it. Yes, I am eager to show you. Yes, but maybe this is not the piece for it. Yeah, true. Yes, and yes, you risk sometimes to be seen as someone that doesn't know how to do a certain thing. Yes, but next time you will show something else. Don't worry. It's okay.
Nice.
Yeah, it is like that. And knowing when to finish. Well, hey, fellow artists, does anyone have the answer to this? Please tell me. Well, it could be the moment where you are tired of it, absolutely nauseated by it. Like you cannot open that file anymore. You cannot pick up that mini anymore because you will die and you know it. Then maybe it's time to stop.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
For sure. Well, I know you've got kids and all and family and stuff for a little bit over an hour. And so do me a favor. Can you give our listeners places to find you? We'll also put these in the show notes as well, so they're easy to click. Where's the best way to look at your artwork?
for us, the ex-generationers that are still on Facebook, my Facebook name is simply Africa Mir. So if you look for my name, you will find me. You put Africa Mir everywhere. I just use simply my name, so I'm easy to find. Instagram is Africa Mir Sculpture.
Okay.
And I recently started doing TikToks just for the Kickstarter promotion, but I am there with the same name as well. And
TikTok, wow.
yeah, well, you know, having teenagers at home, it's quite easy to just grab TikTok and see, okay, what's this about? Tell me, show me, you know. And they're like, Mom, what did you do?
I think my kids, you know, I have a 19-year-old, 17-year-old, and a 14-year-old. They would be absolutely mortified if I appeared on TikTok.
But isn't it fun to mortify them? I mean, it's part of my job.
Right.
I was kind of hoping to reach this point where they can be mortified by mama. Come on.
Right. Well, see, I reached the pinnacle of that with my son when he was like 7, because we had so our pediatrician has been friends with he and my wife have been friends since college, and so they had hired somebody and bought a Barney costume, and that person backed out on them last minute, and I'm 6'4", almost 6'5", perfect size for Barney. So they're like, hey, Mike, could you do it? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. So I was,
will my kid be there? Absolutely.
My son followed me around. He's like, Dad, you're embarrassing me. This is so embarrassing. But if you look on my Facebook, you'll also see a picture where I was totally framed. I was totally set up by this pediatrician. He's like, so I'm in the suit. I got the head off, and he's like, hey, you want a beer to go before you get out there? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So he's literally snapped a picture of me in the Barney suit drinking a beer and like posted it all over everything. And so I have a former student of mine for debate. He's like, every time I'm in a bad mood, I go to your Facebook and search for this picture. And I'm like, well, at least I can help somebody.
Yes, of course. Hey, like my auntie said, she's overweight, and she's such a happy person, but she always tells me herself, I am super overweight, but hey, someone needs to provide contrast. You know how happy all the rest of the women are in the beach when I'm there? I am doing that for them. So happy. So cool. Exactly. Just go and provide contrast.
Right. Sure. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And one of the things we tell all of the artists that have been on here, if you've got new things coming up, anything, big projects or anything, we can always record a PSA. We could always do, let us know, and we'll share because now you're part of the Listening to Paint Dry family. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that.
You know, we take our guests very seriously, and really appreciate their time and the artwork and hard work that they do. So
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It was fun.
Dan and I would like to thank Africa Mir for joining us today. It was really a pleasure, and it was amazing hearing your hobby journey. Thank you so much for your patience. It did take us a little while to get this episode out. We've been kind of busy, but it was definitely worth the wait because it's a fantastic conversation, and we really enjoyed having you on the show, Africa. Thank you again so much. Please check out all of our social media links in the show notes, particularly Africa Mir Sculpture in Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Listening to Paint Dry. You can also follow us on Twitter at Dry Listening. Please like, subscribe, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a good review, we'd really appreciate it. The number one way that podcasts market is through word of mouth. So please feel free to tell your friends about it. We really appreciate it. We'd also like to give a shout out to all of our Patreons. Thank you again so much for your continued support. You are amazing. If you would like to join them, please check out the link in the show notes. It's been a wonderful journey, and we've really enjoyed producing content and are really appreciative of all of our listeners out there. So thank you again so much. Becoming a better, braver, happier painter is all about enjoying the journey and loving what you're doing. Until next time. Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.